So I feel the excitement. I think we're all here ready to see and listen to some good stuff that's going on. So I'd like to welcome all of you again to the Orange County Forum's first live meeting here in 2023. And I think we have a good one today. I see a good turnout, and I think we're not going to be disappointed. We have some great speakers. My name is Henry Mendoza. I'm a CPA and partner with MM and Company. We're only a block away from here, so I'm also on the board of directors, finance chair, and past president of this organization. So I'd like to welcome all of you on behalf of the board of directors and our president who couldn't be here today. I think we're in, today everybody saw this title, What's Next in Politics, and I think we're all wondering the same thing. So I thought this is very apropos to see what's going on, and I think everybody here is interested. One thing I'd like to do is acknowledge our ongoing sponsors. We have UCI and UCI Health. Please give them a big round of applause. I think another group that actually helps us get this thing going is our board of directors. Without the board of directors, we would not have an organization. So if I can have you at least raise your hands, our board of directors, they're all around you. Also, I'd like to thank ComLab. They actually help run the organization. And I don't know if Ariana, I haven't seen her, Ariana Barrios is here. She's also an elected official. I think she's Mayor Pro Tem of Orange. And Georgie, you've seen him running around here with the blue hair. His hair used to be black. There he is right there. He's the energy behind all of this. I know there's some electeds here, and so I'd just like to acknowledge all of you. If you're here, please raise your hands or stand up. Why don't you stand up? Because being an elected official is a tough thing. So I'd love to give you some acknowledgement. Please stand up. Please stand up. My mayor right there, Mayor of San Clemente. Another elected over here. But we also have the president of Cal State Long Beach right here, Jane Connolly. We have a great group here. I'm not going to take away from Rick's introduction, but we have Rusty Hicks, chair of the California Democratic Party, right here. Shawn Steel, the National Committee, Republican Party, is here also. Ajay Mohan from the Executive Director, Orange County Democratic Party. And Randall Avila from the Orange County Republican Party is here also. Thank you. You're in for a treat today. So also what I'd like to do is thank all of you for being here. Without our audience, we would be nothing. So thank you all for joining us here today. Hopefully we put on a good program and a good show because that's what we're about. We're a current events organization that has been doing this for a long time. Over the years, I've brought people to these luncheons, and they say, wow, how long have you guys been around? 30 years, I think it is. So we've been around a long time, and we're a stalwart of the county. So what I'm now going to do is move on. In the past, we've let you eat your lunch, but I think we're running into a little bit of time. We need a time crunch. I think these people have a lot to say, and I think we'd like to hear them. I would like to first turn off my phone. That's rule number 1, right? So I'd like to introduce Rick Reiff. He is going to be the moderator today. Most people in this room know him. He gave me somebody gave me a very long resume, but you know what? He needs it. He's somebody that has done a lot in the community. He's a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist, editor of the large Orange County Business Journal, and producer of public affairs programs. He's a 4-time Golden Mike winner, 3-time Emmy nominee, 2018 recipient of Orange County Press Club's Lifetime Achievement Award. Rick has also been on the Orange County Business Journal since 1990, and he served 10 years as editor and and wrote papers for the Orange County Insider. And in 2004 through 2018, he produced Inside OC with Rick Reiff and Southern Cal Insider for PBS and KDOCE TV. But if you would allow me, before we applause for him, I wanted to thank my co-chair for this event, right here, Joellen Chatham. She's sitting right here below me. She helped me put the organization. So, Joellen, you're not looking up, right here. This lady was my co-chair for this event. So thank you so much. But anyways, a round of applause for Rick, and I think we're in for a great program. Thank you.
Thank you, Henry, but you were supposed to read the short version, not that one. But anyways, it's great to be here. What an ecumenical gathering today. This should be interesting, and I think we're in for a very enlightening hour. I think we should just get going, so if you folks, just kind of try to eat quietly, and we'll do it. As you know, you don't need me to tell you that today our politics are very toxic. We have many problems, and at least in this early going, it's hard to see how the recent elections are going to change any of that. But if anybody can give us some direction and some insight into what might be possible in the coming year or two, it's certainly this panel. And I detect at least a little glimmer of hope in the fact that these 4 distinguished guests who are, adversaries of one another have agreed at least to come together today so that we can hash out some of these issues. So I'll just, as I give a slightly longer introduction to each guest, and Henry did, I'll ask them to come up. So Rusty Hicks, why don't you come up? Arguably, Rusty is numero uno in California politics. He's in his 4th year as the California Democratic Party chair, and with 10 million registered voters in California, that makes him the head of the biggest political party in the nation. He was previously president and political director of the Los Angeles County Federation of Labor. In 2008, he was the California political director for something called Obama for America. And he, as his bio says, he lives amongst the redwoods now with his wife, Sandra Sanchez, and their chocolate lab, Charlie.
The important
Next up, Shawn Steel. Shawn is no stranger to Orange County politics. He's a trial lawyer. He's the former chair of the California Republican Party.
How are you? Good to see you.
Is this the first time you've shaken hands? I'm curious.
With the Democrat in 30 years.
It's the first time for everything.
And Shawn is the 2nd most influential politician in the Steel household. As most of you probably know, his wife, Michelle, represents Orange County in Congress. And something that, Shawn, correct me if it's not true, but I came across, and for some of you that are as old as I am, you might recall this. Early in his career, he was a legal advisor representing families of victims of the Jonestown Massacre.
That's true.
Okay. Next up, Ajay Mohan. Ajay is executive director of the Orange County Democratic Party and the youngest ever to serve in that position, 23 years old. Are you still 23?
25 now.
25 now.
I gotta start making my own healthcare in 2 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Also the first Indian American to hold that position. Ajay has flipped a lot of seats for the Democrats, including in this last election, the Board of Supervisors, and he is a native of Irvine. And finally, Randall Avila. Randall is executive director of the Orange County Republican Party. And like AJ, I'm assuming he's another millennial. Is that right? So millennials are taking over the world, and they've already taken over the political parties in Orange County. Randall grew up in the San Gabriel Valley, and he's a UCLA Bruin. So gentlemen, again, welcome. Thanks for coming. And let's just get going. I'll try to parcel out the questions fairly. Randall and AJ, I might start with the older guys first for a little bit, and then we'll get local. But anyway, okay. And so I think it's best. I've got 2 for you 2 guys here, and I think I'll go first to Shawn. I think it's more appropriate he lead off. More appropriate you lead off the second question. So, Shawn, Is anything going to get done in Washington, D.C. in the next year or two?
It's going to be a lot of excitement. There'll be more investigations than you've ever imagined. There'll probably be some real stuff actually exposed. There's been a pent-up, great interest, certainly in the Biden family, and so though there's there's millions and millions of people focused on that, and it's been this great struggle between big tech and mass media and the raw data. Also, I think you're going to see McCarthy. If you underestimate him, you're making a mistake. There's a lot to learn from Nancy Pelosi. She had exactly the same majority, 5 or 6 votes. And McCarthy's been winning his votes. He won one this morning where Congressman Owen's no longer going to be on the committee for foreign affairs because of her anti-Semitic utterances and her anti-Israeli policies. So these are tough votes, and you're seeing a unity here that I think McCarthy's the master to do that. The Senate's going to be pretty much muddling along. I don't expect a lot of legislation is going to be getting passed. It's going to be transformational the way that Biden wants it. And so I think you're going to get a form of gridlock, which I think a lot of people are kind of comfortable with. I mean, rather than having more bad policies, at least stop the train from utter mass destruction. So there's a great deal of angst in this country, a lot of lack of trust in the institutions. It's interesting if the Democrats are going to keep keep Biden on life support and have him as their next presidential candidate, or they dump Harris or not, Kamala Harris. It's interesting if Republicans are going to bring Trump back for another 4 years when there's a lot of people now running. It's going to be one heck of a year. A lot more is going to be known, but there's more uncertainty than anything else. Will anything get done? Not a whole lot.
Rusty, your turn.
There's a lot there. I'm not sure where to exactly start, which is no surprise. I appreciate that. I think we do agree that it's unlikely. I'm hopeful that there's a lot done, a continuation of the previous Congress that did quite a bit with virtually the same majority margin, although I'm not optimistic that in fact that's going to be the case. Certainly, Speaker McCarthy is getting a lot of practice, certainly had a lot of practice coming in as Speaker, given it took him 15 times to become Speaker. I will say it only took Nancy Pelosi 1 time to become Speaker with the same majority. But I think, Shawn makes a good point about the Republicans of this Congress are likely to focus on investigations and a number of other things. And I think Hakeem Jeffries, our Democratic leader, has made it clear that there's a hand extended to work on those things on behalf of the American people. And so I think certainly over the next 2 years there's going to be a clear contrast as to what exactly that means. I certainly do expect at some point President Biden to step forward and be our nominee in the general election in 2024 and to continue on his work between 2024 and 2028.
Well, given that I think the answer was not much is going to happen, let me ask, I'll ask each of you now, all 4 of you, and Rusty, I'll start with you. Is there anywhere that you think there's room for some compromise or something of concern to the American people that the 2 parties could compromise on that they're not doing right now?
Well, there's one area that I think we will all have to compromise on, and there will have to be some form of agreement on, is the debt ceiling. The reality is the full faith and credit of the United States government relies upon a compromise to continue to run the government and continue to support the American people. And so I think obviously that conversation is coming down to a conversation between the White House and Speaker McCarthy, but I certainly expect there to be some progress made on that because there has to be.
Okay. Shawn?
Yeah, I think there'll be a great deal of more interest and I think some unity. Tim Scott, the only black U.S. Senator elected from the Deep South in 100 years, and 100 years ago there were also Republicans elected from the Deep South. The Deep South has never elected a Democrat. Senator. Tim Scott put a major proposal on the table for police reform, police training, but the Democrats scuttled that some 3 or 4 years ago. He had a couple of Democrats in the Senate with him, but I think there's much more interest in having quality training because the shift against police has been dramatic and it's dangerous. And the irony is, the great irony is, there's this anti-police attitude in a lot of urban areas, carried out by some local politicians, a lot of local politicians in some major cities. It's created a far more dangerous environment for the minorities. The very people that are Democrats have been swearing they're going to protect and embrace, protect, and make sure that their life is better, it's gotten worse, more dangerous. The streets are dangerous. L.A., who here wants to really go to L.A. anymore? Not many people I know in Orange County. It's a dangerous place to go to. It's filthy. So I think there's a lot more interest in that. And Democrats are feeling the heat. Their own constituents are having real problems with that. We saw the great recall that took place in San Francisco on a school board that just went completely insane and bonkers early last year. And we saw the new DA emerge that got rid of the old DA, Democrat, but actually wants to prosecute criminals. There's too many criminals that are getting away with literally with murder in major cities throughout the country. So I think there's an interest among some Democrats to shift that around. And I think you're going to see a much more focus on criminal justice. And if they don't, the Democrats will do it at their peril.
So we'll raise the debt ceiling. We'll have some criminal reform, maybe. Your turn, AJ. Do you see anything state, local, national, where there's no cooperation now, where you think there could be some cooperation?
I'll say that there should be. I don't know if my mic's on. Is my mic on? Okay, fantastic. There should be, frankly. I mean, Democrats have had so many historic victories over the last several years that have benefited a lot of people in this room, right? When we're talking about infrastructure bills, Trump promised that all of his 4 years, and now we're seeing that the Biden administration actually passed it. We passed the PRO Act to make sure that labor can actually organize at the table and stop some of the anti-labor policies that the Trump administration bring. We're also seeing that the Biden administration passed the CHIPS Act, right? And that should be something that bipartisan cooperation should be possible on, right? Making sure that we are producing and manufacturing chipsets at home and not in the shadow of China. So I think, Democrats have had a lot of successes. We should be able to capitalize on those successes, but frankly, I don't know if there's enough leadership in the House, seeing that there was 15 votes, to Rusty's point, for a speaker to be elected, to actually get some stuff done. I don't know if McCarthy has control of his caucus, but I know I'm very glad that Democrats have control of the Senate and control of the presidency, and that means that the American people would prosper, even though it may not have been more fun than the Trump administration.
Randall, anywhere where you see there could be cooperation?
Yeah, I mean, I sure hope so. I think in November, the American people sent a clear message to Washington that we wanted change, we wanted balance, right? We needed a hard stop on the Biden agenda that was hurting a lot of families. And so I think the message that the American people sent to Washington was that we need to compromise, we need to work together, we need to find solutions, because I don't have to tell everyone in this room that we have a lot of problems in this country. We feel it every day when we're trying to fill up our gas tank to go to work. We're trying to buy some eggs to make some breakfast. I mean, things are just out of control, and they're hurting American families, and they're hurting our communities very directly each and every day. To Shawn's point on crime, I grew up in Monterey Park. I grew up in LA. I lived there for 26 years of my life. And it was a beautiful community, and it's a beautiful city, but the crime there that my family and my friends and the folks that still live there are experiencing is just out of control. You can't walk your neighborhood at night the way you used to. You can't feel safe in your home at night. You hear that ring doorbell at 11, and you don't know what the hell you're going to see when you go and look out there. It's tough, and so I think there's going to be a lot of pressure on Democrats, and I hope that they get the message that the American people want us to work with Democrats and solve some of these issues. So we'll see what happens. I hope that both parties will listen to their better angels and try to come together and solve all of these problems, because we don't have a lot of time. These issues are facing us each and every day on our doorsteps, and we need Washington to work for once.
Okay, Rusty, turning to the state, what will the legislature and the governor be focusing on, do you think, in the next year?
Well, I think there's a projected budgetary shortfall of $25 billion or so. Obviously, we have generally had fairly conservative budgetary projections, and at least over the last 3 years have come in over budget projections. I think a conservative approach when it comes to what you're projecting in the coming year, coming cycle is important. And so how do you do that? How do you address a budgetary shortfall in a way that doesn't complete gut programs that have supported working Californians for the past 2, 4, 6 years? Obviously, there's a rainy day fund put in place by Jerry Brown. I don't think anybody believes it's wise to go in and wipe that out. And in fact, the governor hasn't even proposed to touch it. I think the legislature will have something to say about that. I think there's a view in the legislature that at least some portion of the rainy day fund, reserve fund, should be touched, although not in totality. So, I think a budgetary shortfall is going to be the first order of business that the legislature and the governor are going to have to come to an agreement on. But then there's a whole host of issues. Obviously, a PPIC poll came out this morning showing that prospects about what the California economy looks like over the next year is not where we would hope it would be. Homelessness and housing, obviously, being one of the top and major issues for Californians. So Democrats in Sacramento, I believe, will continue to focus on those important issues.
So in the budget, you didn't mention taxes. Is that going to be part of it too, raising taxes?
Well, I think it has to be a part of the conversation about what taxes are taken in, what's not taken in. Certainly the state government, Democrats ended up putting money back in the pockets of Californians, specifically connected to that. So I think it'd absolutely be a part of the conversation.
Shawn, it looks like you're writing down a lot of ideas there, but what's your thought? What do you expect out of Sacramento in the next year?
Yeah, first of all, I'm sitting between, I think, two reasonable people I could have a discussion with. I don't think they represent the Democrat Party in Sacramento. They're run by lunatics. The state is completely insane. I don't know where you start. The worst schools in America, among the worst, they get the highest financing and they get the worst results. Terrible atrocities. There's minority groups suing different school boards and the State Board of Education for horrible instruction, and the COVID just kind of put the nail on the coffin. That's why you're seeing a desperate plea for school choice and school charters. And then you look at the mass migration. Everybody here, no exception, including the Democrats, have had friends flee California. There's a huge out-migration movement. Millions in the last 30 years have left. Millions have come in, but basically we're losing congressional seats. That's objective evidence. We have relatives and friends, with no exceptions, have gone to Texas, gone to Florida, gone to states that housing is cheaper and better, jobs are good and plentiful, crime is less, schools are better. It's a quality of life issue. In Sacramento, the quality of life is not going to get improved. These are vultures hovering over a carcass, and that's called the taxpayer. And that taxpayer has been picked pretty clean. How many businesses have grown in California and have left state? How many businesses have left California? And we see it every year. There's long lists of them. This is a very anti-business area. So yeah, we got jobs all right for hamburger flippers. And then the great tech revolution, the hardcore Marxists that run big tech, now they're firing tens of thousands of employees in Silicon Valley. So even that little golden jewel that was supporting the state government is now turning sour. So yeah, we've got some real problems here. Just one little example. The Sierra Mountains have more snow in 30 years. Isn't that great? Now, we used to build dams in California to preserve and control and protect water. We haven't built them in 40 years. In fact, we're taking down dams in Northern California. This is the ecological Nazis that have put this together. We have twice as many people as we had 40 years ago, and then we have these droughts, these man-made climate-controlled droughts. No, California's always been a dry state. You hold water and you protect it, and you have dams for that. We even passed bonds, but the Democrats aren't spending the bonds to build dams. This entire state's upside down. Oh, the trillions of gallons of water that's in the mountains are going to flow out to the ocean because nobody's holding it. That's just one little tiny example of the insane. These are people in Sacramento, and I'll finish with this. I know, I could go on. I'll be on KBC in a few minutes anyhow, so I'm warming up. But Here, many of the people in Sacramento who are politicians, you would not want them to watch your car.
Okay, AJ, I saw you about ready to jump out of your skin, so I'll let you respond to it. But just to maybe, let's forget about what Sacramento is going to do and take.
Good.
Shawn just gave an answer to another question I was going to ask, so I'll ask it,
Sure.
which is, why are people leaving California? And if you don't agree with the premise, you may disagree with the premise if you wish. But he kind of, I think Shawn gave his answer. To the question, why are people leaving California? How do you respond to that?
I mean, I'll start with this. Shawn, there's always Texas. But, you know, I think California is a really unique state, right? We are the biggest state in the nation. We are the leaders in environmental policy. When we put regulations on cars, those cars are now, those regulations usually get implemented nationwide just because car companies go along with the Californian market. We have really great leaders at the state. And, you know, sometimes I feel like we live in two different states, Shawn, the way you describe it. But, you know, I'm blessed to live in Orange County, where we see the benefits of Democratic leadership every day, right? When we have local school boards that are like systematically dismantling public education. I'll take Placentia or Belinda, for example, right? When they implement a policy that says all Cal State Fullerton student teachers are going to pull out of the district, that's directly harming our public schools and public kids. So I don't think the Republicans are any better in the leadership, and again, we live in two different states. I also see that the state's supporting things like that are really important for us, like infrastructure. You know, dams are taken down. Yeah, that's going to be part of what infrastructure happens. But the fact is, the state's still in a drought. Even after all the rain that we faced, we know that the Colorado River is going down. We know that we're going to have to negotiate for water rights, and we're going to have to negotiate cleaner water, PFAS chemicals out of the water, and frankly, the Democrats are the ones that are doing that. Republicans are interested in just stopping the system of government. And frankly, I would like to live in a society where government functions. And, you know, these are not radical things. Like, there's no state Democrat who's trying to, you know, defund the police. We haven't passed any bills on that, so I don't know where that propaganda is really coming from. But I do know that Democrats are the ones who are actually trying to make government work, and that's the most important thing.
So what do you think about the idea of people leaving the state? Do you think it's not a big issue, or how do you think?
We may disagree with the premise in that too, but you know, I do know that California has some really high housing costs, right? And frankly, you know, I know I'm paid by the Democratic Party, but you know, Democrats are partially responsible for those high housing costs with bad policies in the early 2000s. So we know now, in the last 5 to 10 years, we've passed really good bills to be able to build more housing, to build more workforce housing, and that means better life for businesses and residents in California. Republicans are not doing that. Whether you see at the local level, at the state level, they're the ones who are trying to stop new housing from being built. They're the ones who are trying to make it like a higher cost state. So, you know, yeah, like there are people leaving California, there are people coming to California, but frankly, Democrats are the ones who are working to make the state more affordable, a better place to live, cleaner environment, and better water.
Randall, your thoughts?
You know, I don't think you can disagree with the premise that people are leaving California. It's just a fact. You know, like Shawn said, we all know someone that's leaving California. It plays out on the numbers. We're losing a congressional seat over it, or we've already lost it. And we all experience why, and we all understand why. We don't really question why our neighbors or our cousins or our friends decide to leave. We understand how expensive it is here. And, you know, we're in the super minority, so we don't have our fingerprints on any of these issues that we're facing right now. Because Democrats don't really want to work with us in Sacramento. But the housing costs, as AJ mentioned, are out of control. Whether you're a family of 4 trying to figure it out how to pay your mortgage or pay the rent, it's too expensive here. If you're in the age bracket of AJ and I don't know that there's a chance that I'm going to be able to buy a home in California. You know, I'm college educated. I did everything I was supposed to do. I went to school. I have a good job. I don't think that there's a chance. And so for people in my generation, it makes no sense to stay here. We love it. It's a beautiful state. We grew up here. We want to stay with our family and our friends, but it makes no sense financially to stay here. And then on top of housing costs, you go to the gas station. We have some of the highest gas taxes in the nation. And we asked Sacramento to just give us a year off. Please just give us a year of our gas taxes off. And the answer is no, we're actually going to increase it. And then you go to the grocery store. We have some of the highest taxes on everything in the nation. You open up your gas bill this month. Well, the rest of the nation is seeing a decrease in their natural gas costs. Ours are going up. We're seeing our horror stories 400%. I opened mine this month. It went up about 4 times. It's insane. So we really need to get a hold on what's going on in California. There are a lot of issues. Affordability is probably on the top of everyone's list on why people are leaving. And then you double down on that with crime. You double down with that on a number of issues on homelessness. We're the homeless capital of the nation. I mean, we have to get things together in Sacramento. And unfortunately, it seems like Sacramento's just not listening. It's out of touch.
Rusty, you get the last say on this topic.
I agree with Ajay in the sense that we are talking about two different Californians, two different Californias. I don't think migration out of the state is to the extent that is being characterized here. Certainly there are outflows just as there are inflows. I was born and raised in Texas. I got here as fast as I could. And I'm glad I did. And every 3 months, I go back to see my grandparents and my mom in Texas. So I have a clear sense of what the Texas lifestyle is all about, and I'm glad I live in California. To the idea that Sacramento isn't listening, what you have heard here, Shawn led off by talking about what's happening in Washington, D.C., and where the source and the center of Republican power in Washington, D.C., and what they were going to do with their time and attention, and they were going to focus in on investigations, as opposed to providing solutions. And that's exactly what you get in Sacramento. There's a reason why. You have to work hard in California in a two-party system to be a third-tier party. That's exactly what you have. You have Republicans and no-party preference voters teetering at 24, 25%. Democrats continue to outpace registration for both no-party preference and Republican voters by 3, 4, 5 times year over year over year. And so I recognize that if you're in the minority, you've got to throw rocks at the majority, the loyal opposition. I understand that. But it's one thing to characterize a California that many people don't see or don't live, and it's another thing to actually provide some solutions to those challenges that they're facing. And so I think Democrats have a supermajority in Sacramento for a reason, and it's simply because Republicans have not put forward any reasonable solutions. Let me just say one last thing about the gas tax. Yes, Republicans came forward at the beginning of 2022, I guess it was, and said, let's cut the gas tax. Okay. No more funding for roads, which is what the voters agreed to, and no assurance that that money actually ends up in the pockets of those that are driving a truck. You know, Democrats took a more thoughtful approach, despite the opposition of Republicans, to ultimately put money in the pockets of Californians who were driving those vehicles to make sure that they got the money and big oil companies didn't end up with even greater profits. And so I think, you know, we can talk about what California looks like and what it should look like, but ultimately our hope is and our wish is that we would actually have a partner in addressing some of the real needs of California.
Hey, Shawn, Rusty alluded to something that I think makes a good setup for the next question, and I'll start with you on this one. And again, if you want to challenge my premise, be my guest. Why is California a one-party state?
I think I answered that.
That's why I said it's a nice setup. I like to see what.
Well, it's kind of, if you've ever read Ayn Rand, you might understand that the producers are leaving. The takers are staying. We have the highest number, percentage-wise, as well as raw numbers, of homeless welfare in America. So if you know, you're no fool. If you want to get something for free and you want to not have to work, California is the place to go to. Need drugs? You want a safe place to go and get your drugs? You go to California. So it's a qualitative, objective reality. If you have a young family and you have places that you can take them in the country, you're finding that the majority of people who are leaving California are parents with young families. The future isn't here. You can't buy a home. They've stopped. You either grow or die. That's a rule of life. California stopped growing 30, 40 years ago. Can't build anything unless it's a $1 million home with all the environmental taxes and requirements. Most 90% of the land in California is not built on, but you can't build on most of it because you got coyote trails and all kinds of absurd regulations. So there's no space anymore. Now they're trying to give us Soviet-style large, dense buildings and nice little middle-class communities. It's undesirable. So you're having producers, young families, people with futures that find us in hospitable place, which the great irony is, it's one of the most beautiful places in the world to live in. And the fact that you have people that are against high quality of life, good standard of living, but really are kind of watching this deterioration is astonishing, but it's well known. And we all know it. We all know it. There's no doubt about it. You can't put lipstick on this pig.
But Shawn, you look at other states, Virginia is kind of, a message, it's more of a Republican message, has resonated in parts of New York State, certainly in Florida. In California, I mean, why in California, again, to get to that question, why is it a one-party state?
Well, it's a one...
You're saying it's because it's screwed up and everybody likes it that way, but I'm saying, is there another reason? Why is it a one-party state?
When I go to a Republican National Committee meeting, and I see my friends in Texas, Florida, and I say, they laugh, you guys are hopeless in California. The crazy stuff that goes on there, the race shaming, the critical race theories, and, taking girls out of athletics and by having boys, pretend they're girls so they can get the awards, and, all that crazy stuff. And I simply say, look, you owe me a deep level of appreciation. I export Republicans to your state. That's what I do. Most of the people who are leaving are Republicans. Most of the folks that are staying, are certainly Democrats. And I'm watching this whittling away. Now, I've been an advocate that the party can grow, particularly in the Asian American. We're seeing dramatic changes in the Hispanic community. And so and Michelle Steel is a great proponent of that. She moved into what was allegedly a purple district and did very well. But she had a campaign in 7 languages. I mean, in mail and text and videos. And she won because she's comfortable in that environment, because she's an immigrant. She came here 19, she's trilingual. And so that is the way that Republicans can survive. And that's how we clawed back 5 congressional seats in this one-party state. So there are opportunities. But by and large, when you have a Leviathan like the Democrat Party, they feed themselves, they feed the unions. The unions, prison guards are my favorite. They'll put up millions of dollars for a statewide candidate, and this happened with Gray Davis, it was 20 years ago. They got $1 billion pay increase over a 10-year period of time. How do you compete with that? Realtors, I love realtors. But you guys are pikers compared to the unions. The California Teachers Association, you want power? How about a dues assessment for $10 million a month for political causes? Bankers, railroad, oil, cars, you name it.
Right. AJ.
Can't match that money. The power is with the unions.
You want to weigh in on this?
As much as apparently we Republicans can't match our money, I can't match that kind of crazy. But, look, you heard it here first, folks. Republicans, or Democrats are in control. We're a one-party state because Republicans have given up and are leaving. So you heard it here, not from me. Look, Democrats are the ones who are championing policies that are great for Americans. The reason that California is so blue, the reason that Orange County is now blue, sorry guys, is because we realize that Democrats are the ones fighting for abortion access. I'm a young person. I really care about housing affordability. I want to be able to afford a home like Randall, but Democrats are the only ones doing anything about it. The reason I'm in this, thank you. The reason I'm in this business is because my dad was taken out by the recession. He was one of 8 brothers from India to come to the United States. He got his PhD. He taught at MIT. He did everything right. And the private sector tanked during the Great Recession. And he lost his job, and he was in a specialized field, and he wasn't able to get another job for 6 years. He was making 6 figures, and he went down to, eating like a 50-cent taco from Jack in the Box every day, and he was living on friends' couches. That's the reason I'm in this business. And when I see that, and when I see that Democrats were the ones who kept him alive, because luckily there's Democratic supermajority, or the Democratic majorities at the federal level, that tells me that Democrats have a real pulse on what's going on in working class America. And frankly, I don't know what America Shawn's living in, where the police are getting underfunded and homelessness is growing way out of control, which it's a problem, but I don't think to the extent that it's being characterized. I think Democrats have a real sense of what's going on in real Californians' lives.
Randall, what do you think? You've got the job of trying to maintain some red in Orange County. What's your view of why this is a one-party state?
Yeah, absolutely. And Orange County is a strong red county. And I just want to point out that our voter turnout in this last election was amazing. We may be outnumbered in terms of registration, but what actually counts at the ballot box is when people vote. And I'm proud to say we got almost 30,000 more Republican voters in this last election than the Democrats did. With that being said, I think what everyone said here was true. There are a lot of Republicans that are leaving California, families that are heading for higher ground. The Democrat Party is very well funded, and Rusty should be applauded for that. They run a great machine there. They have a lot of money. They have a great operation, and they're able to win a lot of good elections. But the fact is that we, as Republicans, are making gains in California. Our congressional delegation has doubled in the last 4 years. We're seeing more and more Republicans go to Sacramento. We're seeing more and more Republicans win on the local levels for our cities who are just trying to be a barrier to Sacramento and kind of a last stand to what they're doing. But at the end of the day, at some point, this talk that Rusty and Ajay are talking about, that we live in two different Californias, two different Americas, I'm sorry, it's just not true. We pump the same gas. We drive on the same roads. We, open the same gas bills every month. It's not that our prices are different or something, or we're making it up or imagining it. You all know the truth because you open up your bills and pay the same gas and pay for the same eggs that we do. At some point, it's going to catch up to the Democrats if they just keep denying, and saying everything's perfect, everything's okay. It's okay to admit that maybe these ideas aren't working as great as they should be, and it's hurting families. At some point, it's going to catch up.
Okay. By the way, in a few minutes, we'll be opening it up for questions. So if you have any questions, you can start thinking about those now. Okay. Well, let's stick with you two local guys over there. As Ajay, is proud that for the first time in decades, the Board of Supervisors is now controlled by Democrats. So Ajay, what do you think we'll be seeing coming out of this new Board of Supervisors?
Yeah. Before I address that, I'm glad I'm answering after the Republicans here so I can try to correct some of the lies. But, I just want to say in Orange County, and I know this just because I take my job really seriously, not only did we get a majority for the first time in half a century on the Board of Supervisors, which is an incredibly powerful local board, we made 9 municipal gains to the Republicans 2. We made 7 school board gains to the Republicans 3. And frankly, we already had a plurality of school board Democrats in Orange County. So to say that, Republicans are winning local elections here, I take personal offense to. But when it comes to the Board of Supervisors, the Board of Supervisors has an $8 billion budget. They are receiving a lot of the federal and state funding that has to be redistributed in this county, right? So when we're talking about anything from senior health care to mental health funding, to making sure that even our roads and streets are being funded, to funding nonprofits to help with mental wellness and things like that, the Democratic majority, I think, is going to be great for us. It's going to be able to make sure that the funds that have stopped at the county because Republicans refuse to spend them can actually be used to address homelessness, which apparently is one of the bigger issues in California. So I'm looking forward to seeing what the board majority does. I think we're still a couple weeks in, and the supervisors haven't really staffed up yet, but it's going to be really exciting to see the change that's happening in this county because Republicans have failed to keep their majorities.
Randall, what do you see coming out of the new Board of Supervisors?
Hopefully short-lived. Listen, when we talk about local races, I know we can talk about school boards again in the nitty-gritty. 22 cities in Orange County have Republican majorities. 10 of those cities are pure Republicans on the council. Democrats only have majority in 10 city councils. We have more than double. So we can talk about the numbers. The thing I said was a lie or incorrect. But what I see coming out of this, Board of Supervisors is, there's one on there who is a lot more moderate. So I think he will kind of play the role in moderating what the majority is going to do.
Who is that?
Doug Chafee. I don't want to promote a Democrat here, but I think Doug Chafee is a lot more moderate than the other two. And
He'll be
so-
the Joe Manchin of Orange County.
I hope so. And, he sides with Supervisor Wagner and Supervisor Doe a lot of the times. And so, while it's a quote-unquote majority, I think he's going to do a lot of good in his position to be able to moderate some of those things. But I do think it'll be a short-lived majority. I think we'll get that seat back. We made some strategic errors in one of the districts and lost that race. But, I believe that we'll be able to get that back very soon.
Okay, let me,
Can I just say,
yes, go ahead.
what has happened here in Orange County and is happening here in Orange County is, I think, an example of what you see on the statewide level. There has been a significant decline over the last 20 years in representation for Republicans at the local level. There's a reason why the California Republican Party is suddenly focusing on local government seats, particularly school board, maybe for other reasons aside from just holding the seat, but focusing on them nonetheless. Reality is the conversation in the state, we talked about one-party state, a one-party state. Yes, Democrats are in charge, but the Democratic Party is as diverse as it gets. Trust me, I know, trying to lead this party, trying to navigate the challenges of the California Democratic Party, to represent leaders in the east part of Los Angeles, in Orange County, and in the Central Valley, and in Lassen County as well. It's incredibly challenging, and I think it speaks to a diverse coalition that is the Democratic Party, and the local level is sort of an example of that in many ways.
Okay, it's time to open up for questions, but I was told that, well, we got somebody already. But just before we do that, I was told that, I said, why only 45 minutes, why not? And they said, because everybody wants to leave, nobody wants to stay. Could I bump it another 10 minutes? Would everybody be happy, or would you rather we just get to questions and end it?
The lady right here is like,
All right,
nope.
they want to do questions, okay.
One hand. Let me.
Well, wait, no, but just before that, a quick lightning round question, okay? And just very quickly, I'll start with you, Randall. What are the chances that the 2024 presidential race will be Newsom versus DeSantis?
I think 0. We may have Governor DeSantis. He's coming to Orange County in a few weeks with us, but I don't think that Governor Newsom will step up. I think they're going to stick with Joe.
AJ.
I like my job. I'm not weighing in on that.
Okay. Shawn.
We believe in free speech, and we don't punish people just because they have a different point of view. So I'll defend you.
I appreciate it.
I will be your lawyer, and we'll sue the parties responsible for suing.
Get you another lawyer.
Yeah, I hope I get a choice from that.
No, you'll need the lawyer. I'm representing him against you, but nothing personal. It's all business. Okay, Seal Beach just had elections Tuesday night. We swept out the Democrat control that had oppressed that poor little community where I lived for several years. That was good. That was just within
Shawn,
48 hours.
DeSantis,
And Huntington
Newsom.
Beach. Huntington Beach, that was sweet. Oh, nasty people were in charge of that city. And again, a clean sweep, 4 for 4. Now, in terms of presidential, California's not going to be much happening. You're going to have an old man, and I don't know which party, by the way, but you're going to have some old white guy that's going to be running for president in California, and nobody's going to care. Absolutely not.
Okay, so no chance, very little chance.
Oh, I'm not going to say no chance at all. I'd like to see a nice, exciting primary season. Okay. I have no control, no independent analysis, but I'm pretty sure Joe Biden's going to be walking around in a golf cart.
Rusty, what's your assessment? What are the chances?
Unlikely.
Unlikely. Okay. I think it's the way to bet, though, especially if you get the odds. Okay. Sure. All right. So here we go. We'll open it up for questions, and we've got the good-looking guy with the Georgie with the blue hair. So just flag him down, and he'll take his question.
Jacket.
Hi, my name's Rebecca, and I represent the parent union, and we represent hundreds of thousands of parents up and down the state. And I can tell you, first of all, I am so disappointed in both parties. Just the playground politics, the shrugging, the eye rolls when people are talking, just the inability to really come together and fight for this state and fight for the people in this state is really disheartening, especially when it comes to our children. I hate the politics right now that's happening in education. This should be something that we can come together, both parties, for the best interest of the future of this state. I'm also a mother of 3 kids. I have recently had to pull all of my children out of public schools. And I just want to know for you guys, we're the 5th largest economy in the nation, but yet we rank towards the bottom in education. Our kids can't read, our kids can't do math. The achievement gap in LA Unified, Oakland, it's awful what's happening to our children. And so I want to know, is this one area that you guys can come together for the best interest of our children and compromise and have a better future for education in California?
Rusty, do you want to start?
Sure. I appreciate the question and can certainly appreciate the frustration, not just with the Democratic Party, but the Republican Party and anybody else who's involved in politics in the state. I think we all agree that we prefer to have and hope to have a first-class educational system like we have had here in California. The reality is, we talk about funding for education. The reality is that we don't fund our education at the level that other students are funded in other parts of the country. I'm not saying that you throw more money at it, that it's going to fix the problem, but I think it is one part of the conversation. Certainly, what happened over the last 2 years, I think, has really set our educational system back, not just here in California, but around the country. And I think we're going to have to spend a lot of time and a lot of focus on recalibrating that and getting it to where it needs to be.
Shawn?
If you want an honest answer, and we don't have a lot of time, I just don't want to engage in the BS. You made a good choice. You got your kids out of a cesspool, very likely, and I'm sorry that was necessary. No, you're not going to get any improvements with the Democrat Party. There's not going to be any agreement. There's a good reason. This California Teachers Association has an ironclad yoke around the Democrat Party officials. You mess with them, you get primaried, you get thrown out. There's a couple of primaries once in a while a CTA candidate will lose, but by and large, they run the show in Sacramento. The teachers are not in the business of educating kids, they're in the business of benefiting themselves. They've said that themselves. There's direct quotes on that. They're a union, they represent teachers. So there is no hope as long as the Democrat Party's in charge. The other approach is going local, very local. And we have this wonderful Democrat, Gloria Romero, in the Senate, that helped us create the charter school movement. And every day the CTA in Sacramento and the Democrat Party is trying to whittle down the school choice movement, the charter school movement. Good news, in Orange County, all 5 members of the Orange County Board of Education elected are all Republicans. We've taken out the anti-charter forces and thrown them to the side of history. So if you want change, please run for school board and talk to me afterwards. I'm encouraging any parent that's outraged, I don't care about the party anymore, any parent that's outraged what's going on, the deterioration of the schools, critical race theories, the race shaming, the anti-educational attitude, it's time to take over your school board. We've done that throughout California, had hundreds and hundreds of candidates running for the first time, about half of them won. And this is going to be a multi-year project. And we're going against the richest union in California. And you know what? We're going to beat their ass because they're dead wrong against history.
AJ?
It's nice to have a boogeyman.
Personally, I'm really good at the issue.
The boogeyman of the California Teachers Association? Okay. I'm sorry, would you mind not touching my chair? Thank you. All right. I'm just personally offended. All right, look, I want solutions. I don't like the partisan bickering, even though I do work for the Democrats, and I believe we do have good solutions. There's a couple things that I think we need to look at, right? Number one, I think Rusty mentioned that California schools are actually not funded super well, and there is room for improvement there. I think state Democrats really need to take a look at that issue. The other thing I want to say is that Democrats are fighting for real issues at the school board level that I think Republicans are missing, right? Teacher pay is some of the lowest that it's ever been. And frankly, teachers are not paid as much as police officers. Teachers are not paid as much as firefighters. And that means we don't get as many quality teachers that we should be getting to teach our students. So I'll bring an example. On the Westminster School Board, which is the democratically controlled school board, teacher pay is now being raised to the 4th highest in Orange County. On the Newport Mesa board, right, where Democrats now have a functional majority, the same thing's happening. Respectively, on the Orange Unified School Board, which actually just got a conservative majority, they took out one of the best superintendents in the state with a 24-hour notice, and they were able to replace that with a far-right person. That far-right person has now canceled access to the online book service that students have. I'm happy to have a discussion with you afterwards. But I think that when we come to education, we need to have people who are actually fighting for public education and not trying to take it away.
Randall, you get the last word on this.
Just say thank you for the work that you're doing with the parent union. It's time that parents have a union and have a voice in their city or their local schools. I hear the frustration in your voice, and I see it with voters every day that are frustrated. And I would follow Shawn's advice. You know, unfortunately, Sacramento's not listening. And you heard it here today, and I hope that you get involved with your school board, run for office, support good candidates that represent your values and are actually going to listen to you and represent your kids. It's going to have to be local for right now.
Okay. Do we have another question? Anybody else want to ask a question? Right here, this gentleman. He's been raising his hand a lot today, so.
Thank you. I'm Bijan Kian. I'm an Orange Countian, and I've been watching politics for a long time. First of all, when I came here, I expected bombs bursting in the air, which it hasn't happened. Pretty pleasant exchange, and thank you for managing it. My question is from Shawn and Russ, both of you, Republican, Democrat. If you think your party is perfect, then I have no questions. If you think something fundamental needs to be done with your party, I'd like to hear what that is. The second part of my question is it fair to look at the conditions of a city, a county, a state, and ask the question, who's in charge? And is that condition directly related to the management, performance of whoever's in charge? So that's my two-part question. Thank you, Rick.
Okay, let's start on the first part, Shawn. Is there anything wrong with the Republican Party?
Yeah, there's not enough of them. No, there's plenty. You know, the trouble is political parties are made up of human beings. Humans are deeply flawed, make lots of mistakes. I certainly make lots of mistakes. So I proffered a resolution, which you think would be a non-brainer at the RNC meeting, a strong resolution against anti-Semitism. I wanted the party on record. I named Kanye West and this character Fuentes, who are, they like to insinuate they're Republicans. I don't want to have anything to do with them. They're anti-Semites, they're white nationalists, they're bad, wicked, evil people, and I don't want to have anything to do with it. I also named a half a dozen Democrats who are in Congress who have also had equally vicious views against Jews and Jew-hating and also hate Israel. And so my point is, when you have those incidences of cancer, I want my party to get cleaned up, and I don't want to have white nationalists. I don't want to have that kind of bizarre type of evil thinking. I want the Democrats to do the same thing. I'd like to see them have a resolution against anti-Semitism and throw out their anti-Semites because it's festering and growing. I like the same thing with universities. So yes, there's constant need for improvement.
Okay. And Rusty, is there anything that you feel the Democrats need to change or reform?
I mean, I think we have the challenge that I think any political party has, and certainly in this day and age, is that one particular sector, one particular part of the party can sometimes get a little too much attention on the mic as opposed to representing the full diversity of the party. And it allows the other political party, the other side, to take advantage of that. But I think that's, I'm sure that might even be something that Shawn would agree with. And so I would say ensuring that there's alignment between elected officials, grassroots activists, and voters is a challenge, I think, for the Democratic Party, but ultimately, I think, a challenge for any political party.
Do we have time for another question, George? Oh, sure. Oh, great. Well, then I'm going to jump in here first just for a moment. Because I kind of feel like I haven't heard a lot of specifics about any area where you guys can come together. So I'm going to throw something out there, and you can shoot holes in it. But on immigration, I've kind of thought about, what do the Republicans want? What do Democrats want? So how about this? This is just my proposal to solve the immigration problem. More border security, tighter immigration controls, a robust guest worker program, and a streamlined path to citizenship. That's the compromise. That's the grand plan. Let's start, Randall, with you. Would you go for that, or why would that be impossible politically?
That sounds great on paper right now. I think it's when we get into the nitty-gritty details and you get into DC and, if it was that simple and we were able to just say, this is what we're going to do, but unfortunately it doesn't. And, what we see too many times is a focus on a path to citizenship without any border security.
I just laid out everything else, all right? That would be the give for Republicans, maybe, or for many Republicans, path to citizenship.
Yeah, and I agree with
And
you
that's a deal killer right there. Is that what you're saying?
No, what I'm saying is when it gets to DC, for some reason or another, we can't solve this issue over all these decades because instead of taking everything you said as one goes before the other one gets left behind, and then we just continue to perpetuate this problem. So I agree with you. If Washington can get it together and pass something that comprehends or has all of that comprehensively and that all gets done together, then absolutely. But unfortunately, Washington just doesn't seem to get it together on it.
AJ, is that a feasible idea?
Before I answer if it was a feasible idea, I'd just like to say that's a really good idea, right? And it was actually proposed back in 2006, 2007, when there was bipartisan majorities in each house, and unfortunately far-right Republicans tanked it. So I think Democrats can continue to work in good faith, but it's going to be tough. Republicans tried to do this again when they had the presidency, the House, and the Senate in 2017. And unfortunately, the immigration failed. And it was a lot of the ideas that you're talking about right now. So yes, I think it's incredibly important for us to do that. That's part of the reason my family is able to be here. I also know that it's politically tough, right? And I think Democrats have more than shown good faith in the last several decades.
Shawn, what do you think of that grand compromise?
I love immigration. You either grow or die. We need to control it. We need to know who's coming in. We need to know who they are. There's 4 million people that have waited for years to become American citizens. They've had the medical test. They've done all the paperwork. That includes members of my larger family. But they can't get in because immigration has been completely scuttled in the most embarrassing, largest mass movement in human history in the last 50 years in the south of the border. Millions are coming, unaccounted for. We don't know who they are. Time's up. We don't know who they are. And there's a president that doesn't even care. And it's not like a terrible savage refugees from a war-torn state, and they're coming in clothes and they're begging. They're healthy young men, overwhelmingly young men. And the greatest story is on the last 24 hours in New York City. They're at a hotel, $300 a night, and they were asked by the mayor, please leave the hotel. We got a beautiful place for you in the Bronx. And we got families coming in. You're just a bunch of young single men, healthy. Some of you are overweight. I mean, you're wearing Nike shoes. You got nice jackets. You don't look like, the message is you don't look like starving, immigrants to me. And you have no documentation. And so they had a guy outside on the news and, translated and says, we don't want to go to that place in the Bronx. It's 4 men for every bathroom. It's like an army barracks. Well, welcome to America. I know you're grateful and you're pleased, and instead they're sitting in front of the sidewalk demanding more rights.
So, Shawn,
That's broken. So
with tighter immigration
your idea is a good one, But it ain't going to happen as long as the Democrats have anything to do with letting the sieve in the south of the border just go uncontrolled.
Rusty, what do you think of the idea of making those compromises?
Well, I think you've got the reasonable components of a comprehensive immigration reform
Why isn't it
plan.
happening?
Well, unfortunately, I think because the issue has been politicized by many folks who don't have any connection to the immigrant community or have sought to take advantage of that. I mean, why does a governor from Florida talk to a governor from Texas to put a bunch of people on a bus, ship them across the country and drop them off, and then drive away? Why? Why is it this group of people that end up in that category? And part of the challenge is we can't even get a deal for dreamers. These are young folks that were brought here who know no other country. And in many cases, some cases, know no other language except for English. And we can't get a deal on that. So I think you've got the components that, but unfortunately I think the issue has been politicized to such a point that some electeds have no advantage to see a solution to that particular.
Back to questions.
Yeah,
Roger.
we have time for 3 more. I know everybody has a lot of questions, so I'm going to try to get each section once. So we have one right here.
Thank you. My name is Matt Cortez, and my question involves the no party preference voters. Over the last decades, that percentage of no party preference voters has been increasing. What does your party need to do to move more towards the center to court those voters?
Rusty, why don't you start off?
Growth in no party preference voters hasn't frankly come from Democratic ranks, come from Republican ranks. The vast majority of transition from one party to being no party preference has come on the Republican side of the ticket. And once we've gone to motor voter registration, you initially saw some increase in no party preference registration, and it actually ended up being because you had to go to a separate form in order to pick a political party. That's been changed now, so every political party or being no party preference is on one sheet, is on one particular form that has sort of went back to norms we saw before motor voter registration. So I would say to your specific question of what the Democrats need to do to appeal to no party preference voters, well, I think what you see, the diversity within the California Democratic Party really speaks to California Democrats' opportunity to engage with no party preference voters in a way in which the other party does not.
Shawn, what do Republicans need to do?
Well, Michelle got 60% of the NPP vote. We're very happy with that. The funny thing about NPPs, I'm not sure that Rusty's correct about the data. I think a lot of folks just don't want to be associated with anything. The fastest growing party in California is back to the American Independent Party. I just love it. Get all kinds of left-wingers joining it. They don't realize it was founded by George Wallace because of the name. The issue is that there's different kinds of NPPs. The ones on the coast are socialists, as I call it. The ones further inland are more pro-American, as I put it. So we like NPPs, but it depends on the neighborhood and the area. And so it's crucial. If you want to get elected in a purple district or in a marginal district, you've got to reach out to the NPPs, but they have a wide variety of views. They ain't just one thing. They have many, many different issues on the table that are often contradictory.
Georgie, do we have another question?
Good afternoon. My name's Phil Schaefer, and I'm a realtor here in Orange County. I've been selling real estate for 35 years here. I love Orange County. I'm very disappointed in the 4 of you up there. All I hear is finger pointing and bickering. I want to tell you, for the ones that are saying people are not leaving, you have your head in the sand. For 30 years, I had one client leave California. They were crying. It was a job transfer. They didn't want to go. The last 3 years, 90% of my sellers have left California. Now, I don't only represent Republican clients. The Democrats are leaving too, and they're people, young families. They're people that are retiring at the fire department, 45 years old, and moving to Arizona. There are people that are taking their pensions that they earned here as a teacher or a cop or a fireman. We're still paying for those pensions, and they're living in Idaho or somewhere else. So they are almost 100% going to red states, and they're doing it because of the taxes. And they all tell me the same reasons why they're leaving. Fed up with the homeless, fed up with the schools, fed up with the crime. The Democrats have had control for 20 years plus in Sacramento, so you cannot point your fingers at the Republicans and blame that on them. You guys need to get your act together and solve some real issues. I don't believe schools are bad because we don't have enough money. We are putting more money per pupil in California students than most of the other 50 states, yet we rank at the bottom. I grew up in California. I went to public schools. I had got a great education. I will not say that's true of my clients and what they're experiencing today. Parents are very frustrated.
AJ, do you want to start off on this one?
I would love to. I don't know if there's a question. But yeah, I mean, look, I share a lot of the same frustrations you do. Again, I might be one of the youngest people in the room, and I know that my generation is facing exactly the things that you're talking about, where we're talking about cost of living issues, especially right here in California. We're talking about, we do have outflow, I'm not denying that, but we're also growing at 6% a year in population, which is not as fast as the rest of the United States, but I get it. People are leaving. So I want to be able to work on those issues too. I think Democrats have solutions, and I'll tell you those solutions, right? I don't want this to be partisan bickering hour, and I know we're not really making any friends up here, but that means that we build more housing. That means that we make sure that sales taxes are lowered. I don't know if you saw Republicans just proposed a 30% flat sales tax at the House of Representatives, and that's a whole nother deal. That also means that we take measures to move us to clean energy, right? Making sure that we're tackling the issues of climate change. So those are the things that I know are going to impact us, our affordability in the next several decades, and I want to be able to be a part of that change.
Okay, and I think for Shawn and Randall, I thought the questioner probably covered the arguments that you've made, so I'll conclude it. Rusty, why don't you comment, because he really seems to be saying it's the Democrats' fault. You guys run the state, and you're the reason we have these problems.
Well, I'm sure there are many reasons as to why we have these problems. My hope is that there's a partner to put forward solutions to actually address them. And if voters decide that Democrats have had their turn at the wheel and they want to put someone else there, then they will do that. We'll continue to fight for those issues until that day.
Okay, one more question, Georgie. Do we have anybody?
Good afternoon. My name is Lupita Aramlaw, and I want to thank all four of you for being here today. It's been a really exciting afternoon listening to you all. I admit my heart started pounding a little bit. A couple of things that were said that I do need to address just a little bit. I also went to public school. My kids went to public school. I have kids in public universities and private universities. They are not cesspools. The schools, I have friends that are teachers that are trying hard every day that make $40,000 a year at K through 12. Unfair comments. Do I have the solution in my purse? No, I do not. But I do expect my government to help guide us in the proper direction. But pointing fingers and calling names and referring to trades, the most important trade in this country, which is not only in this country, we educate our world, our nation. And I refuse to allow you to belittle us the way you did, our education. Is it perfect? No. We just had COVID, pandemic. We're recovering. We're recovering from that, but we're nothing without one another, Democrats or Republicans, people with children, people without children. So I really appreciated the question, is there anything that we could agree upon? I sure hope so. I sure hope so. And respect for one another should be number one. And without having to call one another names. Because I sure felt it in my body, thinking, oh, that wasn't cool. So I do appreciate it.
So Shawn, I think it's appropriate for you to respond first on this one.
You know, this is we're looking at our lives and our children and our friends and neighbors. Quality of life is deteriorating in California for many people, not for the super wealthy. I don't care about the super wealthy. They got the tax breaks, they got the political connections, they can get on a private jet, get out of town, and they do. I care about the middle class. The middle class is what the cornerstone of the Republican Party was since Abraham Lincoln. The merchants, farmers, ranchers, folks with professional jobs. That's who I care about. And they're being attacked. And there's a war against the middle class. There's a war against the suburban communities. It's a very serious war. It's pernicious. And the war against the children, well documented. We talked about it earlier. And elections have consequences. Obama told you that. And when you elect people that just are tools of a labor union and that don't really have the fundamental interest of parents, you're going to get exactly what you deserve. If you vote like they did in Oakland, Alameda County, they vote for a DA that's essentially pro-criminal, you're going to have a lot more crime. I'm just telling you, elections have consequences. Now, there are ways of burying your head in the sand and not listening to the reality, and that's okay. It's a free country. But we have difficult times right now, and it's not going to get any better in California with the current leadership, and that's just a fact of life.
Rusty?
I don't have anything to add from what's already been said.
AJ?
I agree with Shawn, and that might be the last time those words exit my mouth, but I agree that we have a real problem in this country, right? We need to make sure that the middle class is strong and healthy. We need to make sure that people can afford to live, to buy homes, to make sure that they can put food on the table. And I'm really looking forward to putting those solutions forward. So, yeah.
And Randall, you get the last word.
Oh, perfect. I would just say, everything that you said, I think both things can be true. I agree with you. There are some great teachers out there. The majority of them, yes, and if I can just, yes. And I agree with you. There is no reason that a teacher should be making that little amount. Unfortunately, a lot of the money stays in the administration. It doesn't get down to the classroom to those teachers. One second. And I went to public school, so I remember fondly teachers like Miss Crawford in the second grade who just went above and beyond for a young Latino boy like me to be able to go to UCLA and work to where I am today. But unfortunately, that high school that I was zoned into was failing our students, was absolutely failing our students. And because I had the opportunity, because of the generosity of the Catholic Church, I was able to go to Catholic school. That shouldn't just be for me or for a certain amount of people. Students and parents need to have the opportunity. If a school is failing them, and if a teacher or individuals in that school are failing them, they need the opportunity, especially poor kids, to be able to go to a school of their choice that's better fitted and suited for them, so that and that doesn't mean abandoning our public schools, but we need to improve upon those and give parents and teachers and students opportunities to grow somewhere where it's going to work for them, because after that, they're done. After high school, you can't just say goodbye, good luck with life. They need to have those skills ready to succeed so we have a good society. So both things can be true. We need to be able to work on our public schools, but also give parents the choice.
Okay, well, one takeaway I have from this is I think the OC Forum should be doing an education panel at some time, because that really seemed to resonate with a lot of you. I could tell you're a very impassioned, involved, insightful audience, and thank you for your attention and for holding back on some of the emotions that I know were out there. I'd like to thank our sponsors, PepsiCo, Wiley Aitken, UCI, and UCI Health. Do they cheer again? Or all right, there, all right. And especially our panel. Thanks guys for coming. This was a great hour. Thank you very much.